Whew. Okay. So it's been a few hours since they announced the new card. Well, the last card in the structure deck. So, okay, I still think it's bad, but I tried. I tried to find a way to implement it within the deck to kind of abide by a certain principle that you kind of want when initiating a sequence. Along the way, you want to be generating some sort of interaction that isn't your primary objective. So let's say going from the first step to the second step, you're going to search a card, but that is not the end result. That's only part of the sequence, but you already generated that resource, making that card that initiated the combo a high quality card, generating you a resource on top of being part of a larger sequence. Let me show you what I mean, because it'll make a lot more sense once I start going. Okay, so be mindful that, okay, let's say they interact with you here. We know the pivots. I've showed you the video where what is required depending on how they interact with you. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check it out. Okay, so let's say once you get to this point, this is what I'm referring to. Full speed, being able to guarantee you an interaction. And you'll see how this unfolds and you'll be like, oh, okay, that's what it's meant to be doing. And you have to view it from a certain perspective, because at face value, you would think this card is trash, and it most likely is, but I'm just trying to implement it in a way where we can utilize it and have it be practical and functional. Once you've already resolved full speed, it's guaranteed you an interaction. That's not the primary purpose for full speed. Full speed is meant to be here as a form of consistency, getting you access to your one card combo through Stinker Fellows. But this is only the beginning of your sequence. It got you an interaction guaranteed. No matter what happens, you got an interaction. If you traded for a hand trap, doesn't matter. You have an interaction to back you up, okay? So the next thing, remember, this interaction is already there. It's guaranteed. So now you pivot into nothing, actually. You're just sequencing off as you typically would, okay? Once again, depending if they interact with tuning, then of course you need to open up Scrap himself, or you open up Synchro Fellows or Overtake. Doesn't really matter. Even if they stop you here, you still have a third attempt into searching a card that mentions Junk Warrior. So the first one was going to be full speed. Second attempt is going to be Scrap Warrior. That gives you access to Synchro Fellows. And then sort of Synchron will typically be the last line of where you have to use him to search your Synchro Fellows. The point is, there's a spare, assuming they don't interact, because they're waiting on Speeder. So that's where this can benefit you in the long run. Okay, so then now you get access to your Synchro Fellows. And it'll make a lot more sense. Watch, just bear with me, okay? You do your regular sequence, and now, because you're contributing another card, this is already full speed, so you already got your cards back. Based off card economy, you got your card back. It's an interaction. Let's say, for whatever reason, they stop Speeder. They stop him. Now what do we do? Okay, what do we do? You go for Start a Synchron, add your Illumination. So right here, it'll vary depending on what extra deck or what boss monster you want to end with. Because of course, you can end on Crystal Wing here if you really wanted to. You can go for a level 10. But I felt that Omega is the best option. You'll see why. So you reduce and you go for the Omega. Okay, so now these two cards, being full speed and Scrap Synchron, converted into an Omega and an effect failure, essentially. It's a form of interaction. You broke even. At the very least, you didn't go minus, you broke even. What this is doing is something that Synchron didn't necessarily have in the past. Because once Speeder got negated, you kind of just forgot all about it. There was no real way to push or have a follow-up. But that's where this comes into play, okay? And then you'll see the value within the trap, okay? So in standby phase, this will return your starter Synchron, giving you a follow-up, because this, once again, is able to search Synchro Fellows. And then you have Trail alongside it. Okay, so now we invested 2 cards and we kept 2 cards. They converted into 2 interactions, which is still something good. Okay? So in standby phase or in draw phase, it doesn't really matter. Just search your regular. So now it's an interaction. So now you're loaded. Through them negating our best Synchro monster, which gets everything going, we were able to establish this, right? So then in main phase, we go hand rip, and remember, this is only 2 cards. We're gonna have 3 more. So whether those are hand traps as well, that's even better for us. But this is just the bare minimum, just to give you an example of what I'm referring to, and it won't be too confusing, okay? So then now we value that, we hand rip. Of course, it'll vary, right? But I just want to depict the situation, okay? Go battle phase, okay, it's fine. Standby phase, Omega comes back, and now we're loaded. This is what I was talking about. Synchron doesn't really have a way to make Speeder again or have some sort of recurability, but this is where Omega comes into play, okay? You go Stardust effect, Chain Trail. This is gonna give us access to Synchro Fellows. Omega returns the Speeder, and then we're gonna try to do it again. That's so cool. Just bear with me, okay? Bear with me. It'll make much more sense. Okay? And before utilizing anything, right? You just go for SD. Okay? SD, trail triggers, revive scrap. So once you're here, you have the first attempt to summon Speeder. There's a few things you can do here, depending on your extra deck. But for the most part, you're just gonna ensure that you have access to a Synchro and you're able to extend. So in this case, we're gonna go for our Spatter, right? But first and foremost, you have to keep in mind that this is there once again. So now it's compounding. Now you're able to get more interaction just off that one full speed search because we're entering a grind game. Synchron doesn't necessarily have a grind game, but the way we can implement this trap card kind of facilitates that in a weird way. And now we go ahead and go for Synchro Fellows, get Sonic Chick. We activate the effect. If the nibiru you hear, it doesn't matter because we are in nibiru range. It's perfectly fine. Because no matter what, we can just get into a Stardust and have the additional summon anyways. And then we go Speeder post nib, which is great. Okay, so once we're here, we go into SD. Right? We trigger the effect of Sonic Chick. And before we even have to commit our Junk Synchron, we can do the first Speeder through our Spatter, which is huge. Revive the Stardust. Try to get for Junk Speeder. Let's say they negate it again. Let's just assume they negate it again. The point of Speeder is to facilitate and help us produce the rest of our boss monsters in our extra deck. But when it doesn't resolve, that's where it can be a bit tricky. But because the trap exists and it's a card that we can search through full speed, it presents this different dynamic that the deck didn't really have. You see what I mean? Like, this is pretty insane, right? Negated Speeder. Now the game is simplified. You can take this many routes. You can go Crystal Wing, you can go into your Junk Warrior Extreme, you can do anything you want right at this point. But the point is, we're establishing interactions and attempting to simplify the game state, even though we did not resolve Speeder. Okay? Right? And then now, those two cards that we started with, those two cards converted into this. It gave us, how many attributes does this guy have? There's wind, dark, earth, light. That's a fair bit of negations on top of the Spatter as well, okay? And then once again, negate it. Get another Veiler. And that just... Do you get it? Do you get what I'm trying to say here? That's just pretty crazy. That's crazy. Wow. So we're using the trap in a way where we don't typically play Synchron. We're just attempting to end the game outright just by producing our board and hoping that we win. But what if we get interacted with? That's kind of our issues. Here's the list. Now that we know the last card, nothing really changes because we thought maybe we had an extender, maybe a spell that can serve as an extender. So it could have changed, but no, nothing really changes. The only difference is whether you want to implement this theory or not, because it does propose an interesting dynamic that Synchron doesn't necessarily have. And of course, you can make the argument drawing this is not great. I agree as well. Drawing this is like the worst, but basically replacing Rev. Because if you saw the combos that I showed based on adding a Synchron after Synchron after Synchron to see what's redundant and what is essential, all this did was give you access to a Crystal Wing. I guess if you view it that way, this is kind of like Crystal Wing, except it doesn't destroy or you don't have the body. It's still a monster negate though. And I ended up going with just double scrap Synchron. You want one for the pivot. Let's say you go summon, then negate, tuning for this, and then you summon one off of Speeder. Summoning the level 1 off Speeder is quite important sometimes, so especially for the trail lines, which is huge. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory. And another way you could probably consider playing this trap is with Quan, but it's a bit odd because that means you're trying to, it's like you're doubling down on bricks. Like you need a brick to facilitate a brick. Like that's not good. It's only in here because it itself can be an interaction, right? Like if you open with it going first, it's an interaction. If you're going second, not that great. Another way I was thinking of using it would be with Nibiru. There will be matches where Nibiru is irrelevant and you're like, okay, well, I'll go Synchro One Way, summon your Quan, Nib, and Quan make into your Legadia or your super heavy guy. I guess you can do that. You can synchro with the Dead Charmies, I guess. You can go into an Excel Synchron and possibly set up a Satellite Warrior, maybe. I don't know. I think it will require you to like facilitate it in a way, so the extra deck would have to change. So I'm not sure if you want to take that route. The amount of non-engine that this deck plays is pretty good, I guess. It's consistent. I'm not opposed to going over 40, so I think that's something that I'm going to do because I feel that it is consistent, but it's not resilient. That's my concern. concerned. So that's where you need extenders like the cash card or playing cards like Ego Booster to protect your speeder, right? Because when speeder resolves, it's like almost an FTK. It's just an insane board that you produce. And I went through all the level ones, and I think these are like the best ones that you could probably consider and maybe build the deck around it. But I think just primarily it's going to have to be your Veiler that you're going to be searching. Yeah, I don't know. So 3 full speed, 3 Stardust, 3 Fellows, 1 Rhoda for the full speed, 3 tuning, 1 card combo, double junk. You need to play at least double junk. You have to. You can't do it with one. It's just double, just 1 for the pivot, 1 for the speeder, then the 1 assault. And once again, rev is not necessarily needed because you could just summon a 3 off of speeder anyways in some lines. Mainly the Stardust lines. If you're doing the full speed route, you don't have one in deck to summon. On Trail, it allows you to have some extension through nibiru, present some obscurities to allow you to out clever your opponent, which is really nice. I'm a big fan of that. And of course, you just have non-engine. Yeah, triple Charmy. If you want to play Perula, you can, because Perula and Scrap is combo. So if you're playing Ego Booster, then you can you just go into speeder right away. Of course, Ash to stop Charmies, Veiler for the Synchro One Way, Impermanence, Nibiru, and then Crosstalk called by, and then your extenders, part of the sequence, and then the extra deck is the extra deck. But anyways, what do you guys think? I just like opening up the perspective of how to utilize certain cards in a way, because sometimes at face value, they just don't seem great. They just don't. Believe me, I still don't think it's great, but when you present it in such a way, maybe have to be a bit more open-minded on how to utilize it, because yeah, a hand trap would just be infinitely better, but it's just how it works within the machine, right? It's a cog within the machine. It's not necessarily the machine. I guess you can view it that way. What do you guys think? I mean, it's an interesting concept for sure. The art is awesome though. This would be an amazing playmat for sure. What the hell, bro? Anyways, that's gonna be it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe if you haven't, and thanks for watching.